I'm Jim White, speaking for the Indiana State Police. And this is Vascar Plus, an amazing new speed timing device now used in operation by the Indiana State Police. Vascar Plus is a miniature program computer that uses advanced microprocessor technology. This computer has both distance and time input capability that allows it to instantly calculate and display the speed of any vehicle the trooper is clocking. And unlike other speed measuring devices, which can only be operated from a parked patrol car, Vascar Plus can be operated while the trooper maintains regular patrol. He can clock vehicles moving in the same direction, either behind him or ahead of him. Or he can clock vehicles coming at him from the opposite direction. Or he can use Vascar Plus from a parked position. Vascar Plus is totally versatile and effective in all situations. Plus, it cannot be located by radar detectors as it does not emit radio signals. And it can be used out of sight of CB radio operators. Two pluses, which increase the law enforcement officer's overall efficiency and effectiveness. Let's take a look at how Vascar Plus works. To determine speed, we use the standard formula that speed equals the distance traveled divided by the time it took to travel that distance. The distance can be either measured by the moving patrol car by activating the black distance switch on the unit, or a known distance can be dialed into the computer. Time is measured by activating the red time switch as the target vehicle travels between two specific reference points. The computer then applies the formula to the known distance and time and instantaneously displays the average speed on an LED readout. There are only two basic components to Vascar Plus. The control module, which contains all the electronic circuitry to store the distance and time information and then compute the speed, and the odometer module, which is mounted at the rear of the speedometer and driven by the speedometer cable. The control module is essentially a programmed microcomputer with a very accurate quartz crystal time base. It has just a few simple switches. The power switch for turning the unit on and off. The black distance switch is used in measuring the distance traveled by the patrol car. The black distance recall button allows the officer to show the distance covered on the digital display. The red time switch is used in measuring the time it takes the target vehicle to travel between two reference points. And the red time recall button allows for readout of the elapsed time. Finally, the thumb wheel dials are used for calibration and for entering pre-measured distances into the computer. The odometer module is an electromechanical device that generates pulses in proportion to the distance traveled. The number of pulses per mile is calibrated to each vehicle. The device produces nominally 10,000 pulses per mile traveled, measuring distance with an accuracy of plus or minus 6.3 inches. It's extremely accurate. It is important to note, although the odometer module is connected to the speedometer cable, it is not dependent upon the accuracy of the speedometer, nor is it affected by the speed of the patrol car. The patrol car speed has no bearing on the measured speed of the violator. Now that we know how Vascar Plus operates, let's turn our attention to the types of reference points used. During daylight hours, troopers pinpoint the exact location of target vehicles through the use of reference points, such as shadows or light density changes, caused by either the target vehicle itself or by other objects. Even on an overcast day, a vehicle will have a shadow beneath it. For instance, notice how the shadow from this overpass causes a change in light density on these vehicles. This shadow and the definite change in light density on the target vehicle can be easily seen by the Vascar Plus operator and pinpoint the exact location of the vehicle. Reference points can be overhead bridges, trees, signs, or light poles. Changes in road surface, such as from asphalt to concrete, driveways, potholes, or cracks in the pavement, or specially painted lines or pedestrian crosswalk lines on the pavement. In fact, any stationary object can be used as a reference point. The key is to watch for either the shadow cast on the target vehicle by the reference point or the shadow cast by the target vehicle as it passes the reference point. The use of these reference points and the changes in light density eliminate the problem of depth perception. Depth perception is not a factor in clocking cars with Vascar Plus. Also, by using specific reference points, changes in light density can be anticipated. The problem of reaction time is eliminated. Now let's take a look at Vascar Plus in action as we ride on patrol with the Indiana State Police. In this first sequence, the trooper will clock a vehicle ahead of him, similar to the way he would clock a car with his speedometer, except Vascar Plus will calculate the speed electronically. The trooper paces the target car at a distance far enough behind that the driver will be unaware that he is being clocked by a police car. As the target car passes beneath the shadow of the overpass, the trooper turns on the time switch. When the patrol car passes under the same reference point, the trooper turns on the distance switch. As soon as a target car passes a second reference point, the trooper turns off the time switch. Vascar Plus now has the time recorded. When the patrol car reaches the second reference point, he turns off the distance switch. Vascar Plus now has the distance and the time. In a split second, it automatically computes and displays the average speed of the target vehicle. In the next method, the trooper will clock a speeder approaching from the rear. In his rearview mirror, he sees the target car approaching at a high rate of speed. Passing a location point, in this case a tree shadow, the trooper turns on the distance recording switch. He watches as the target car rolls across the same location point and immediately turns on the time switch. At a second location point, the shadow of another tree, the trooper turns off the distance switch. When a tree shadow strikes the target car, he turns off the time. Distance, time, speed, all recorded by Vascar Plus. Remember, distance is always measured by the patrol car, but the speed of the patrol car has no bearing on the measured speed of the target vehicle. Time is always measured on the target vehicle. Let's see how Vascar Plus works in clocking an approaching vehicle. As the target car passes the reference point, in this case the near end of this bridge, you can see the car's shadow as it crosses the point where contrasting road surfaces meet. At that instant, the trooper turns on the time switch. As the target car passes abreast of him, the trooper turns off the time switch and turns on the distance switch, all in one motion. As he passes the same reference point, he turns off the distance switch. Vascar Plus now has the necessary ingredients of time and distance. It automatically computes the speed. The trooper turns to pursue and stop the violator. Without Vascar Plus, he would have to pursue at extremely high speeds and then attempt to get an accurate clocking by pacing the target car. With Vascar Plus, however, all he need do is pursue the car at a safe speed until the violator can be halted. Then the trooper can show the violator the average speed at which he was clocked by Vascar Plus. If the violator questions the speed, the trooper can easily display the distance and time recorded by Vascar Plus simply by pressing the distance recall button to show distance traveled. Then he presses the time recall button to show the recorded time. With these distance and time figures, the violator can easily calculate the speed for himself if he questions the computer's accuracy. In any event, it's a good idea for the trooper to record these distance and time figures on the citation for possible verification later in court. We've now seen that Vascar Plus has the tremendous advantage that it can be operated on patrol from a moving vehicle. But also, it can be operated from a parked position. In this case, the trooper picks out a location point, such as this bridge overpass, and turns on the distance switch. The patrol car is driven to a point where traffic can be easily observed as it passes beneath the bridge. After parking the patrol car, the trooper turns off the distance switch, automatically recording the distance in the unit. As target vehicles approach, the trooper needs only to activate the time switch as they travel from the bridge to the patrol car's parked position. In extensive testing, Indiana State Police troopers were able to accurately pinpoint the speed of vehicles 1 mile away. It is also possible for officers from an off-road position to clock vehicles crossing at T intersections. In this method, the officer turns on the time switch as the target vehicle passes a reference point at the intersection. The officer pulls onto the road and turns on the distance switch when he passes the same reference point. When the target car passes a second reference point, such as this underpass, the officer turns off the time switch. When the patrol car reaches the second reference point, he turns off the distance switch. The calculated speed is immediately displayed. It's important to remember that Vascar Plus measures the average speed of the violator. This is fairer to the motorist than a measurement of peak speed. So far, we have seen clocking applications based upon distance measured with a moving patrol car. Vascar Plus also has the capability of entering a pre-measured distance into memory. We call this dial-a-distance. For instance, suppose the trooper wanted to clock vehicles passing between two reference points, A and B, from an out-of-sight position on the entrance ramp to the highway. He would first measure the distance between the two reference points, usually by driving from A to B, and recording the distance on the Vascar Plus unit. Once the distance is known, it can be recorded and entered on the thumb wheel dials. Now the trooper can park unobserved on the entrance ramp, turn the time switch on when the target car passes point A, and turn it off when the target car reaches point B. The measured time and the previously dialed-in distance allow the computer to calculate the speed. In an instant, the trooper can be in pursuit of the violator. In actual practice, the ability to dial in a previously measured distance allows the trooper to repeatedly clock vehicles until he observes a speeder and moves to pursue and apprehend him. Later, when the trooper returns to the location, he can continue to clock passing vehicles because he still has the pre-measured distance dialed into the computer. In fact, once this distance is known, the trooper need not measure the distance again. To save time and minimize detection by passing traffic, he simply dials in the pre-measured distance, and Vascar Plus is ready to compute the speed of passing vehicles. Vascar Plus is not limited to daylight operation. At night, the trooper can clock vehicles as their headlights cause light density changes on reference points, such as this reflective sign, or such roadside objects as mailboxes, trees, and light poles. Nighttime reference points can be any objects such as guardrails or marks that show light density changes with passing headlights. As the trooper observes the light change when the target car passes this reflective sign, the Vascar time switch is turned on. As the patrol car reaches this reference point, the distance switch is also turned on. As the target car passes a second reflective sign, the time switch is turned off. As the patrol car reaches this second reference point, the distance and the speed is recorded on Vascar. Vascar Plus is not limited to patrol car operation. It can be effectively used in aircraft applications with a dial-a-distance method on pre-measured reference points. Vascar Plus is a new and vital tool in traffic law enforcement. It's easy to operate, extremely accurate, and highly versatile. But most important of all, it vastly increases the effectiveness of the officer on patrol. In 1 year alone, almost 52,000 people lost their lives in motor vehicle accidents. That's one death approximately every 10 minutes, and it's more than twice the number of murders recorded over the same period. Excessive speed has been a major contributor to the staggering motor vehicle fatality rate. But fatalities are not the only problem. Statistics gathered by the U.S. Department of Transportation indicate that motor vehicle accidents cost the public in excess of $50 billion a year in medical and rehabilitation expenses, lost wages, welfare, and property damage. That's $222 a year for every man, woman, and child in America. And that means that every car owner, driver, and taxpayer ends up paying higher taxes and insurance premiums in order to cover these expenses. Law enforcement's job is to reduce the loss of life. injury to person, and loss of property on our highways. And that means controlling the speeders. Speeders are gamblers. They gamble that they won't be caught and that they won't be killed. And, although they often get by, they very frequently kill. Too frequently. That's why a traffic arrest now is so important. It can prevent a traffic death later. Vascar Plus gives the law enforcement officer an extra edge on the speeder. It helps reduce the odds. It helps make our streets and highways a safer place to drive. It helps save lives.